London, 1833. The city glittered as if every candle, every carriage lamp, and every polished shoe existed solely to impress the night itself. In the West End, where fortunes were displayed like jewelry and reputations could be shattered in a single evening, the Ashford townhouse stood proudly illuminated. Inside, the ballroom breathed, silk rustled, fans whispered, and perfumes collided in the air like invisible declarations of war. It was the first grand ball of the season hosted by the Ashford family, and society naturally had arrived hungry for music, for gossip, and most of all, for scandal. At the far end of the ballroom, beneath a cascade of crystal chandeliers, stood Chloe Ashford. She did not glow. No, glow was reserved for her half-sister, Vivienne. Chloe stood quietly, hands folded over the pale fabric of a dress that had been altered twice to appear new enough for the evening. Her dark hair had been pinned by a maid with more tenderness than her own family ever showed her. Her eyes, however, were the truly dangerous part. Soft, observant, and always a little distant, as if they belonged to someone who had learned early that listening was safer than speaking. If one listened very closely, one could almost hear London whisper, "She's the plain one, the quiet one, the unnecessary one." Chloe heard it all. She always did. Across the room, Vivienne Ashford floated through the crowd like a perfectly rehearsed dream. Her gown was a shade of ice blue that made her eyes sparkle. Her laughter was bright, her smile sharp. She was beauty-made weapon, something London adored and feared in equal measure. Tonight, Vivienne was the star. Tonight, Chloe was merely the backdrop. The orchestra played a waltz, and the ballroom shifted, couples aligning as if pulled by invisible strings. The Duke of Hereford laughed with a marquis near the punch bowl. A viscount spun a debutante too fast and she almost collided with a footman. Somewhere, an ambitious mother nearly cried when her daughter was passed over for a dance. It was all terribly predictable, at least until he arrived. Whispers moved faster than any carriage. "Is that him? The Duke? Westborough has come?" Because one must understand in London, when a duke enters a ballroom, the air changes. Oliver Wycliffe, Duke of Westborough, stepped into the Ashford ballroom with the quiet confidence of a man who knew exactly how much power he held, and how little interest he claimed to have in using it for the amusement of others. His dark hair was neatly styled, his shoulders broad beneath his black tailcoat, and his expression composed. Some ladies said his eyes were cold. Others said they were merely guarded. All agreed on one thing. He was devastatingly handsome and infuriatingly self-contained. He scanned the room out of habit rather than curiosity. London was a stage, and he had long ago grown tired of the performance. The ballrooms, the gossip, the carefully measured glances. None of it promised anything worth his emotional investment. And then his gaze paused. He saw a girl standing alone near a garland of roses, as if she were part of the decorations rather than one of the guests. She held herself with a quiet grace that did not ask for attention. Her eyes were focused on something unseen, something inside herself. He did not yet know her name, but he noticed her, which in London was the beginning of every great scandal. "Chloe, do at least try to look less pensive," Vivienne murmured as she approached, each step deliberately soft, her skirts whispering across the polished floor. Chloe turned. "I am simply observing." "That is precisely the problem," Vivienne replied, smiling sweetly. "Men do not marry observers. They marry ornaments." "Then I am safe from both," Chloe said, with a hint of humor that Vivienne either missed or ignored. Vivienne leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Do not embarrass our family tonight. We spent enough on this ball to buy a small village. The least you can do is not look like a governess who has wandered into the wrong room." Chloe's throat tightened. She swallowed the hurt and smoothed her hands down her skirt. "I will do my best," she said quietly. Vivienne gave her a final, satisfied look and glided away to be adored. Chloe stood alone once more. She tried to focus on the music, letting the strings and piano hold her together. She watched the dancers spin under the high ceiling, their movements rehearsed, their smiles practiced. Somewhere deep inside, a small ache pulsed, a longing not just to be loved, but simply to be seen, not as a burden, not as a shadow, but as someone who mattered. The first hour passed. Men came and bowed to Vivienne. They complimented her gown, her eyes, her laugh. They bowed to Chloe as well, but only in passing. A courtesy extended to the dull sister of a bright star. No one asked her to dance. It was not new. It still hurt. By the time the supper set was announced, the ballroom buzzed with excitement. Footmen moved through the crowd with trays of champagne. Candles flickered in tall candelabra, turning the room into a golden dream. Chloe stood near the refreshment table, trying not to feel too conspicuous in her solitude. She reached for a glass of punch, her gloved fingers trembling just slightly. "Careful, Chloe." Vivienne's voice rang out nearby, lightly amused. "Do not drink too quickly. We would not want you stained." Chloe turned her head. Several ladies stood around Vivienne, their eyes gleaming with shared amusement. Chloe smiled politely, unsure of where this was going, but already feeling the familiar sense of danger. Vivienne lifted a crystal glass, filled with deep red wine. Her smile widened. "You know," Vivienne said, loud enough for those around her to hear. "Sometimes I think Chloe was meant for parish work. She has the face of a saint, don't you think? All patience and no prospects." A few ladies laughed behind their fans. Chloe's cheeks burned. "Vivienne, that is hardly—" "Oh, don't pout," Vivienne continued, stepping closer. "It's not your fault the gentlemen are blind to modest charms." As she said the last words, she flicked her wrist. The wine left the glass in a perfect arc. It hit Chloe's dress like blood on snow. The ballroom froze. The sound of the orchestra lingered for one impossible heartbeat, then faltered, fading into an uneasy silence. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. Chloe stood there, the front of her pale gown drenched in crimson wine, dripping at the hem. The cold liquid seeped through the fabric, clinging to her skin. For a moment, she could not breathe. Her fingers tightened around her empty glass. Her heart pounded in her ears. "Oh!" Vivienne gasped dramatically, a hand flying to her mouth. "How clumsy of me." Someone tittered. Another lady whispered something behind her fan, eyes bright with enjoyment. A scandal. Small, cruel, but perfectly visible. Chloe swallowed, forcing her voice to steady. "It was an accident," she said, though the lie tasted bitter. "Because it was always like this, wasn't it? 1,000 accidents that all cut in the same direction." She took a small step back, desperate to flee the circle of stairs, the humiliation, the barely concealed joy of those who adored such scenes. But her slipper caught the edge of her gown, and she almost stumbled. It was then that the Duke moved. Oliver had watched enough. From his place near one of the marble columns, he had seen the entire scene unfold. The mocking tilt of Vivienne's chin, the forced laughter, the sharp, theatrical gasp, the whine. He had also seen the look in Chloe's eyes, the moment her embarrassment turned inward, as if she were the one at fault. Something inside him hardened. He did not like cruelty dressed as entertainment. He disliked it even more when the victim stood there with such quiet dignity, refusing even then to retaliate. The room seemed to part for him as he crossed it. People moved instinctively aside, drawn by some ancient understanding that when a duke walked with purpose, something worth watching was about to happen. He took off his black tailcoat as he approached. Chloe, staring down at her ruined gown, did not see him at first. She only felt a sudden warmth at her shoulders. The heavy weight of fabric settled around her, covering the worst of the stain. She looked up, startled. He stood in front of her, tall, calm, serious. "Your Grace," she whispered, completely bewildered. His eyes met hers. They were not cold now, merely intent. "Miss Ashford," he said, voice low but clear enough for those around them to hear. "Forgive me for interrupting, but I find myself in need of something quite urgently." Chloe blinked. "Of what, Your Grace?" He held her gaze for one long, dizzying moment. "A wife," he replied. The ballroom gasped as one living creature. Vivienne's smile shattered. Someone dropped a glass, the crystal breaking at their feet. A matron nearly swooned. Another lady clutched her pearls in delight. Oliver turned slightly, but his hand remained steady on Chloe's shoulder, his coat still wrapped around her like a shield. In fact, he continued, his expression unchanged, I see no reason to delay my intentions. He faced the crowd fully now. There was no easy way back from what he was about to do, and perhaps that was what he wanted. No retreat. No second thoughts. I, Oliver Wycliffe, Duke of Westborough, he declared, wish to offer my hand in marriage to Miss Chloe Ashford. Here, now. The word exploded in the air. Marriage? Chloe's world tilted. She heard the whispers crashing around her like waves. But why her? The quiet one? This must be a jest. A scandal. A true scandal. Chloe's lips parted. Your Grace, she stammered softly. This cannot be serious. You do not even know me. His eyes softened, just barely. I know enough, he said. I know that cruelty should never go unanswered. I know that a woman humiliated in such a room deserves to leave it with her head held high. And I know, he added, his voice turning almost imperceptibly gentle, that there is more strength in your silence than in every laugh that has been thrown at you tonight. Her heart throbbed painfully. No one had ever spoken of her like that. No one had ever seen her like that. Behind them, Vivian stepped forward, her voice sharp. Your Grace, surely you mean to jest. Chloe is... He did not even look at her. I do not jest, he replied calmly. Miss Chloe Ashford, will you do me the honor of becoming my Duchess? Duchess. The word wrapped around Chloe like a dream in a storm all at once. She looked at him, at the room, at the wine, still dripping from the hem of her gown, at her half-sister, livid beneath layers of powder and prettiness. Her life had always been decided by others, by fathers, by fortunes, by expectations, by cruel sisters and silent corridors. But this, for all its madness, felt like a choice, a terrifying one, a miraculous one. Her voice trembled. Yes, she whispered, I will. The ballroom exhaled in a rush of shocked delight. The orchestra, uncertain but obedient, began to play again. Conversations resumed in frantic whispers. A new story was being written in that instant, of a duke, a humiliated girl, and a proposal that had turned a cruel moment into a legend. Chloe stood there, wrapped in the duke's coat, heart pounding. Oliver inclined his head in a slight bow, something unreadable glimmering in his eyes. In that glittering London ballroom under chandeliers and scandal and stares, Chloe Ashford ceased being invisible. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the shock and the fear and the dizzy impossibility of it all, something small and fragile began to stir. Not certainty, not happiness, not yet, but hope. London did not sleep that night. It simply shifted from candlelight to ink. By morning, every drawing room, tea room, and private breakfast table in the city echoed with the same story, told in a dozen embellished versions. The quiet Ashford girl, humiliated by her own half-sister in front of everyone, rescued by the Duke of Westborough and publicly claimed as his future Duchess. It had everything a good story needed: a ballroom, a stain, a duke, and above all, a scandal. Some claimed he had always been secretly in love with her. Others insisted he was acting out of boredom. A few, usually those who liked to believe themselves insightful, whispered that the Duke was hiding something. But there was one thing on which everybody agreed. Chloe Ashford, the girl no one noticed, had just become the most discussed woman in London. In the Ashford townhouse, the morning began with a headache, not Chloe's, Lord Ashford's. He sat at the head of the breakfast table, staring down at his newspaper as if it had personally insulted him. The headline, written with enthusiastic cruelty, read, "The Duke's Unexpected Duchess. A humiliation, a proposal, and a ballroom stunned into silence." He folded the paper with more force than necessary. "This is nonsense," he muttered. "Public nonsense." At the far end of the table, Chloe wrapped her chilled fingers around a teacup she had not yet tasted. The events of the previous night replayed in her mind like a dream she did not trust. The ballroom, the wine, the coat around her shoulders, his voice. "Will you do me the honor?" Her heart still fluttered in a way that made it difficult to breathe properly. Vivian, seated beside Lord Ashford, stabbed her fork into a piece of toast so viciously that crumbs flew onto the tablecloth. "She has no idea what she has done," Vivian said. Chloe looked up, startled. "I did nothing." "That," Vivian snapped, "is precisely the problem. You did nothing, and yet, somehow, you are to become a duchess." Lord Ashford pinched the bridge of his nose. "Enough, Vivian." "With respect, father, it is not enough," Vivian replied, eyes bright with a dangerous sheen. "Do you have any idea what people are saying? They think Westborough's proposal was some sort of romantic declaration, that he saw Chloe's inner beauty in the midst of tragedy." She almost choked on the words. Chloe kept her gaze lowered. The words inner beauty stung more than they flattered. Compliments that came at the expense of someone else's cruelty always did. "I will speak to the Duke," Lord Ashford said. "There may be an explanation." Chloe's voice came out smaller than she intended. "An explanation for what, father? His proposal? His wish to make this official?" "His impulsiveness," Ashford answered. "Men do things in the heat of the moment that they later regret." Chloe's stomach twisted. Was that what she was? A moment to be regretted? "Perhaps," Vivian said smoothly. "He will come to his senses and rescind the offer before the banns are even announced. It would be humiliating, of course, but hardly surprising. Men of his station do not marry charity cases." The words landed like blows. Chloe's hand tightened around her teacup. Her first instinct was to shrink, to retreat, to apologize for existing. But something in her, something that had been quietly building for years, refused to let her sink this time. She placed her cup down and lifted her chin. "I did not ask him to propose," she said, her voice steady, "but I will not apologize if he does not regret it." Vivian's lips curled into a poisonous smile. "You are naive, Chloe. That is why he chose you. A naive woman does not notice when she is being used." "Used for what?" Chloe asked. Vivian leaned back in her chair, eyes gleaming. "Oh, I do not know. A convenient distraction, a political move, a favor to father, or perhaps simply a way to humiliate me in return for last night. If that is the case, then congratulations. You are officially the sharpest dagger London has ever seen, and you do not even know who you pierced." "Vivian!" Lord Ashford's voice rose at last. But the damage had been done. Chloe swallowed hard, feeling the old ache of being the lesser, the extra, the mistake. She knew Vivian's words were designed to hurt. That did not make them less effective. A knock at the breakfast room door interrupted the tension. The butler entered, composed as always. "Your lordship, a letter has arrived from Westborough House. It bears the Duke's seal." Even Vivian fell silent. Chloe's heart thudded against her ribs. Lord Ashford gestured. "Bring it here." The butler crossed the room and placed the letter in his hand. The wax seal caught the morning light, deep red, stamped with the Wycliffe crest. Ashford broke it open and read. His brows rose once, then again. He folded the letter with a thoughtful frown. "Well?" Vivian demanded. "Has he come to his senses?" Lord Ashford looked at Chloe, not unkindly this time. "No," he said slowly. "If anything, he has just proven he has them." He turned the paper slightly in her direction. "The Duke has formally requested permission to court you properly, Chloe," he said. "He wishes to do things according to honor and respect, given that last night's declaration was made in haste and in public." Chloe blinked. I do not understand," she whispered. Vivian laughed sharp and brittle. "Of course you do not. Let me translate. He wishes to appear noble while deciding if he will actually go through with it." Ashford ignored her. "He has asked to call this afternoon," he continued. "He wants to speak with you privately, to ensure you are not being forced into this arrangement." Chloe's breath caught. Not being forced. She thought of all the times choices had been made for her. Schooling, dresses, where to stand at parties, when to speak, when to be silent. And now, a duke, of all people, wanted to make sure she was not coerced. Hope and fear mixed in her chest. "I will see him," she said quietly. Vivian's jaw tensed. "Of course you will." Westborough House was as London imagined a duke's residence should be. Dignified, imposing, and irritatingly flawless. By the time Chloe arrived that afternoon, the scandal had settled into something more dangerous. Fascination. Curious eyes watched from passing carriages as her modest Ashford coach stopped at the grand entrance. Footmen in dark livery stood in silent rows. As Chloe stepped out, her heart hammered. She wore a gown of soft green, one of the few that had not been previously owned by Vivienne. Her maid had woven a simple ribbon into her hair. She had always known luxury from a distance. Today, she felt as if she were walking into its mouth. The butler greeted her with impeccable courtesy and led her through polished halls lined with oil paintings and quiet power. As she walked, Chloe's mind raced. What if Vivienne was right? What if this was a duty, a bargain, a game? She had spent her life feeling small. Could she bear feeling small as a duchess, too? The study door opened. "Miss Ashford," the butler announced. Chloe stepped inside. The room smelled faintly of leather and ink. Tall windows let in the gray London light. Shelves lined with books covered the walls. Oliver stood by the fireplace. Without the distraction of a ballroom, a crowd, or the echo of violins, he seemed somehow more real. Less legend, more man. He bowed his head slightly. "Thank you for coming," he said. Chloe curtsied, her hands finding one another in front of her gown. "Your Grace." A moment of quiet stretched between them. Not uncomfortable exactly, simply full of things unsaid. He gestured toward two armchairs near the hearth. "Please, sit." She did. He remained standing for a moment longer, as if uncertain of how to begin. Then he moved to stand nearer, hands loosely clasped behind his back. "I have been told," he said, "that my actions last night were dramatic." Chloe's lips twitched. "London seems to agree, Your Grace." A shadow of amusement crossed his face. "London rarely needs encouragement to dramatize." He grew serious again. "Miss Ashford," he continued, "I would like to speak plainly, if you will allow it." She nodded. "Plainly sounds refreshing." He inclined his head slightly, acknowledging her quiet wit. "I did not propose out of boredom," he said, "nor out of cruelty toward your sister, though I will not deny that her behavior provoked me." Chloe swallowed, eyes dropping to her folded hands. The memory of red wine on pale fabric felt very close. "I proposed," he continued, "because I could not bear to watch a woman be humiliated in such a fashion while I did nothing. That is a selfish reason in its own way. I dislike myself when I am a coward." Her gaze lifted to his. "You were not a coward," she said. "You were reckless." He raised an eyebrow. "Do you disapprove?" "I do not know," she answered honestly. "My life has changed with one sentence. I feel as if I am still trying to locate myself in the story." He studied her for a moment, something thoughtful in his expression. "You are more direct than most," he said. "I have had little practice in being valued for my subtleties," she replied softly. Silence again. Then he took a breath. "There is another reason," he said. "One that has nothing to do with last night." Her heart began to pound again. "In the weeks before your family's ball," he explained, "I made certain inquiries about alliances, about families of honor, about women whose character might be compatible with my own disposition." "Disposition?" she repeated, a hint of irony in her voice. "I am not an easy man," he admitted. "I know this, and I do not pretend otherwise. I wish to find someone who was not dazzled by titles or frightened by silence. Your name was mentioned more than once." Chloe stared. "My name?" "Yes," he said. "Chloe Ashford. Quiet, observant, kind to servants, gentle with children, steady. A woman who endures humiliation without inflicting it on others. A woman, I was told, who had never truly been chosen." Her throat tightened. "I began watching discreetly," he added, "at gatherings, from a distance. I saw how you moved about the edges of a room, how you listened more than spoke, how you stepped aside so others could pass. Miss Ashford, I do not consider invisibility a flaw. I consider it a sign of someone who has learned to survive without demanding applause." Her eyes burned. No one had ever spoken of her like that. Not as an inconvenience, not as a charity, as if her existence carried weight. "And so," he said, When your sister attempted to shame you in front of London, I found I could no longer stand at the edge of the crowd. My proposal may have been impulsive in its timing, but not in its intention. She took a slow breath. Intention? She repeated. Yes, he said steadily. I wish to marry you, Miss Ashford. Not because of last night's scandal, because I believe you would make a remarkable duchess. And selfishly because I believe you would challenge me to become a better man than I have been. The room felt suddenly smaller. Chloe's mind flashed with memories. Her father's indifference, Vivian's barbed comments, the half-smiles of men who looked through her rather than at her, the chill of being present and yet perpetually unseen. And now, here was a duke saying he wished to learn to be better, beside her. Fear whispered, "You will not be enough." Hope answered, "Perhaps you finally are." "What if you are wrong about me?" she asked quietly. He held her gaze. "Then I will spend the rest of my life discovering who you truly are," he replied, and adjusting myself accordingly. Her breath caught. She studied his face, not just his beauty, which was obvious, but the sincerity in his eyes, the careful way he chose his words, the vulnerability he did not seem accustomed to revealing. "You speak like a man making a contract," she said. "In some ways, marriage is just that," he replied. "But I would prefer ours to be a covenant, something chosen, something grown over time." Chloe looked down at her hands again. "I am not accustomed to being chosen," she admitted, "or asked what I want." "Then let us begin there," he said. "What do you want, Miss Ashford?" It was such a simple question. It felt like a revolution. She considered. "I want," she said slowly, "to belong somewhere I am not an inconvenience. I want to be able to speak without fearing I will be laughed at. I want kindness, not perfection, not grand gestures, just ordinary kindness that does not end when the ballroom lights fade." His expression softened. "That," he said, "I can strive to give. I cannot promise not to fail, but I can promise to try, to listen, and to repair what I break." A long silence fell. Not empty, full. Finally, Chloe lifted her chin. "And what do you want?" she asked. He seemed almost surprised by the question. "I want," he said quietly, "a home that is more than walls and titles, a wife who does not fear me, a partner who will tell me when I am wrong and trust me when I am right. I want peace, and perhaps, if we are both very brave, love." Something glowed gently in her chest. She looked at him, truly looked, and saw not just the Duke, but the man. A man who could be proud, reserved, flawed, but also a man who stood between cruelty and its victim without hesitation. Perhaps Vivian was right. Perhaps she was naive. But for the first time, Chloe felt the sweet sting of possibility. She straightened her shoulders. "Very well, Your Grace," she said. "If you are willing to be honest and imperfect, I suppose I can do the same." His lips curved into a small, genuine smile. "Then may I have the privilege of courting you properly?" he asked. "With visits, conversations, and the official approval of your father?" She almost laughed at the absurdity of it, as if last night had not already changed everything, as if London were not waiting with bated breath. "Yes," she said softly. "You may." He exhaled, just slightly, as if some tension he carried loosened. "Then let us begin," he murmured. As Chloe left Westborough House later that afternoon, the sky over London was its usual pale gray, the streets busy with carriages and lives that had nothing to do with hers. But inside her chest, for the first time in a very long time, something steady and warm began to unfold. Not certainty, not a perfect fairy tale. Something far more dangerous and far more beautiful than that. The first hint of a love that might be built, not on spectacle but on truth. London adored spectacles, but it adored surprises even more. And nothing, absolutely nothing, was more surprising than the Duke of Westborough paying polite, consistent public visits to the quiet Ashford girl. By the third day, the city had already renamed Chloe in its private gossip circles, the unexpected Duchess, the silent triumph, the girl who slayed a ballroom without lifting a finger. And London, being London, loved her for it. Well, almost everyone. The Ashford townhouse was unusually tidy. Flowers had appeared in unexpected places. A maid had polished the silver twice, though no one would actually use it. Even Lord Ashford was dressed more carefully than usual, adjusting his waistcoat as if the Duke's mere presence might cause fashion judgment from the heavens. Chloe stood by the window, hands clasped before her, watching the street below as her heart thudded far too loudly. Every few minutes a carriage passed and she felt her breath catch. This was ridiculous. She was not a trembling debutante awaiting the arrival of a handsome suitor. Except she was, at least partially. She sighed, smoothing the skirt of her pale green gown. Her maid had braided her hair with a soft ribbon, giving her the appearance, Vivian had hissed earlier, of a governess pretending to bloom. Chloe had ignored the insult. She was getting quite good at that. Then, hooves, then wheels, then the unmistakable crest of Westborough glinting under the daylight. Her breath caught. "Oh," she whispered. Yes. She was a trembling debutante. The butler announced him with unnecessary grandeur. His Grace Oliver Wycliffe, Duke of Westborough. And then he stepped into the drawing room. That was the problem with Oliver, Chloe discovered. He did not simply enter a room. He arrived. Quietly, calmly, and yet with a presence that rearranged every molecule of air. "Miss Ashford," he said, bowing his head. Chloe curtsied. "Your Grace." His eyes softened. "I am not certain formalities are strictly necessary between us anymore." Her lips twitched. "And yet you insist on them." "Perhaps," he admitted, "because they give me time to think." She blinked. "Do I unsettle you, Your Grace?" A slow, quiet smile touched his mouth. "Frequently." "Oh, oh dear." Her stomach fluttered in a way she did not appreciate, yet very much enjoyed. Lord Ashford entered, all polite smiles and hidden calculations. Tea was served. Vivian sat across the room, pretending to read a magazine while in reality, eavesdropping with the subtlety of a hunting cat. Oliver spoke with elegance and restraint, discussing London weather, the upcoming charity auction, the newly returned opera singer who had everyone whispering, but every few minutes his gaze drifted back to Chloe. Not in hunger, not in possession, but in curiosity. As if she were a puzzle he wished to understand. After half an hour, he requested a walk in the garden. Chloe nearly declined. Only proper betrotheds took formal strolls. Her father, however, accepted on her behalf before she could speak. "Of course, Your Grace. The garden is at your disposal." Vivian's magazine tore slightly in her hands. The garden behind the Ashford townhouse was not remarkable, but it was quiet. A few rose bushes, an old stone bench, ivy climbing the walls. Simple, modest, almost shy, which Chloe had always loved. The Duke seemed to relax as soon as they stepped outside. The crisp London breeze ruffled his hair just enough to make him look less perfect and more human. "I hope you are comfortable," he said. Chloe folded her hands. "I am attempting to be." A soft chuckle escaped him. "Honesty again. A rare and dangerous habit. I find it simplifies conversation." "Oh? And what would the honest version of today's conversation be?" She hesitated, then said, "That you make me nervous." He stopped walking, turned to her slowly, and for a heartbeat looked younger, almost surprised. "I make you nervous?" "Yes," she said quietly. "Because I do not understand your intentions, because I'm unused to being seen, and because," she swallowed, "because part of me wants to believe you." His gaze held hers, steady and unguarded. "And the other part fears you." He nodded once, thoughtfully, as if she had given him an answer that mattered more than flattery ever could. "I appreciate that," he said. "More than you may realize." They continued walking. A silence settled between them, not cold or distant, simply reflective. Finally, he stopped near the oldest rose bush in the garden. "Miss Ashford," he said gently, "may I offer a truth in return?" She froze. "Yes." He took a breath. "I do not know how to be the man you need yet." Her lips parted. "And that troubles me," he continued, "because I very much want to learn." Warmth unfurled inside her chest. Steady, lingering, terrifying. She looked at him, really looked at him. His posture was composed, but his hands were slightly tense. This duke, this man who commanded rooms without speaking, was insecure in front of her. "I do not expect perfection," she whispered. "I only expect effort." "Then I can offer that," he said. Sincerely. A gust of wind rustled the rose petals. Chloe's hair loosened slightly, strands brushing her cheeks. Without thinking, Oliver reached out, then stopped himself. His hand hovered in the air, inches from her face, suspended between desire and restraint. "I am not yet certain what liberties I may take," he murmured. Her cheeks warmed. "Nor am I." His hand lowered. Not touching her. Not yet. But the air between them had changed. Later, when Chloe returned inside, Vivian pounced. "Well?" she demanded. "What did he say? What did he want? Did he ask you to plan the wedding? Did he confess undying devotion? Did he—" Chloe walked past her, serene as moonlight. "Good day, Vivian." "Do not you dare walk away from me," Vivian screeched. But Chloe already had. For the first time in her life, she felt her own power. Not loud, not sharp, but quiet and dignified. A strength Vivian would never understand. Across town, Oliver sat alone in his carriage, hands clasped, staring at nothing. He had not planned to speak so openly. He had not planned to reveal insecurity. He had not planned to almost touch her. But Chloe Ashford had a way of unraveling him without lifting a finger. He leaned back against the seat and let out a slow breath. "Yes," he murmured to himself. "This will be dangerous." That night, as London gossiped itself into exhaustion, Chloe lay awake in her room, her fingers drifting unconsciously to the ribbon in her hair. She thought of his honesty, his vulnerability, his almost touch. She closed her eyes. For the first time, the loneliness inside her felt less like an empty room and more like a space waiting to be filled. Not with grand gestures, not with fairy tales, but with kindness, effort, truth, and perhaps, if they were both brave enough, love. London 1833 had many talents, but its favorite hobby, its greatest sport, was judgment, and tonight, judgment glittered brighter than the chandeliers. The invitation had arrived with unnecessary flourish. The Marwood Sapphire Ball, hosted by Lady Frances Marwood, society's most theatrically elegant woman, known for her diamonds, her scandals, and her uncanny ability to know everything before it happened. Naturally, she wished to host the first event after Chloe's engagement. That wasn't quite yet official, but London had already decided. Chaos, therefore, was inevitable. Chloe stood before her mirror, breath unsteady, staring at the reflection of a woman she barely recognized. Her maid had chosen a gown of soft gold, gentle, warm, elegant, without loudness. The fabric hugged her in a way that suggested confidence. Her hair had been swept into a twist with loose curls framing her face. She looked luminous, not dazzling like Vivian, not intimidating like Lady Marwood, but quietly radiant. The way morning sunlight touches a windowsill. A knock. "Come in," Chloe said softly. Her father entered, awkward in his best coat. For once, there was something like pride in his eyes. "You look lovely," he said. Chloe blinked, surprised. "Thank you, father." He cleared his throat. "I know I haven't always seen you. Not properly. But the Duke, he does." Her eyes softened. "I hope so. Make sure you see yourself too," he added, just before turning to go. The words lingered long after he left. When they arrived at the Marwood estate, London had already begun whispering. "Is that her? The future Duchess? She's prettier than I expected." And quieter. "I heard she brought him to propose, can you imagine?" Chloe inhaled slowly. "You do not flinch," she reminded herself. "You do not shrink." The butler announced their entrance, and all heads turned. The ballroom was a breathtaking ocean of color. Blue velvet curtains, crystal chandeliers dripping like frozen waterfalls, women in jewels that cost more than small houses. But none of it compared to the man waiting near the starlit pavilion at the far end. Oliver. He wore black, precisely cut, elegant and dangerously quiet. Every woman in the room noticed him. Every man feared him. and when he saw Chloe enter, his posture changed, subtly, instinctively, beautifully. His shoulders loosened, his eyes softened. A warmth flickered through his expression, brief but unmistakable. It was enough. Enough to send the whispers spiraling. Oh my. He looks interested. That cannot be right. Westboro? Interested? Nonsense. Oliver crossed the room with purposeful calm. Miss Ashford, he greeted, offering his hand. Her heart fluttered. Your Grace. Oliver, he corrected. Her breath hitched. Oliver. Vivian, glittering like a jeweled dagger, moved quickly toward them. How very touching, she said sweetly. I hope the rumors of your engagement are simply exaggerated, Your Grace. Chloe does struggle with pressure. Oliver's jaw tightened. Chloe, however, breathed once, slow and steady, and replied, Don't worry, Vivian. Unlike gossip, intent tends to hold firm. Oliver turned his head sharply. His lips curved. A smile. A real one. Shall we dance? He asked. Yes, Chloe said. The waltz began. Oliver's hand rested at her waist. Steady, warm, but respectful. Chloe placed her gloved hand in his, her pulse beating fast enough to drown out the orchestra. You're trembling, he murmured. She lifted her chin. I'm trying not to. His thumb brushed her hand. The smallest touch, but electric. You're doing far better than you think, he said. London is merely testing you. It does that to every woman of worth. Worth? She echoed quietly. Yes, he said. Worth. He spun her gently, and for a heartbeat she felt weightless, untouchable, radiant. But then, the murmurs began. A pair of ladies near the balcony whispered too loudly. Perhaps the Duke felt sorry for her. A charity proposal, can you imagine? Desperation is a powerful motivator. Chloe faltered. Her foot missed the rhythm, and she stepped slightly on Oliver's shoe. Mortified, she whispered, I'm sorry. Do not apologize, he said immediately. You did nothing wrong. But the damage had been done. The whispers multiplied. She looks overwhelmed. She's not Duchess material. He'll regret choosing her. Chloe's chest tightened. She pulled her hand back slightly. Your Grace, perhaps we should stop. No. The word came low, quiet, unyielding. He guided her to the edge of the room, not away from the crowd, but in full view of everyone. Then he lowered his voice. Do not let them write your story, Chloe. Not tonight. Not ever. She swallowed hard. I'm trying. That is enough. Her breath shook. Her resolve trembled. Then, another voice. Female, sharp, familiar. Your Grace, Lady Marwood swept toward them, dripping in sapphire jewels. A word, if I may. Oliver inclined his head. Of course. Chloe began to step aside, but he caught her hand gently. You stay, he murmured. Lady Marwood raised a brow. How unprecedented. Her gaze slid to Chloe, studying, weighing, judging. You've caused quite the storm, my dear, Lady Marwood said. London is fascinated. Chloe smiled politely. London often is fascinated with things it does not understand. Oliver's hand tightened around hers. Lady Marwood's lips curved. Indeed. But let me give you some advice. Her eyes sharpened. Some women do not like their spotlight disturbed. Chloe's brows knitted. I am not seeking a spotlight. Ah, Lady Marwood said softly. And that is precisely why you are dangerous. With that, she drifted away like a jeweled cloud. Chloe looked up at Oliver, unsettled. What did she mean? That, Oliver said dryly. Lady Marwood has always enjoyed cryptic prophecy, but I feel as if she was warning me. Possibly, he admitted, but she was also acknowledging something important. What? That you are no longer invisible. A breath left Chloe's lungs, not relief, not fear, but something deeper. Recognition. Later, as they stood near the veranda, Chloe finally found the courage to ask the question twisting in her chest. Oliver, do you regret proposing? He turned sharply. No, I regret only that the world made you ask. She exhaled shakily. The whispers, the looks, I feel small. He stepped closer, not touching her. Not yet, but near enough that the world blurred behind him. "You are not small," he said. "They only want you to believe you are, because it makes them feel larger." She swallowed a wave of emotion. "Chloe," he added quietly, "may I show you something?" She nodded. He offered his hand. She hesitated, then placed her fingers in his. He guided her into the moonlit corridor leading to the gallery room. Empty, quiet, safe. When the door closed behind them, he released a slow breath, as if shedding the entire ballroom. "Here," he said softly. "You do not have to pretend." Her voice trembled. "Pretend what?" "That you are not remarkable." Her heart jumped. He lifted her hand, slowly, deliberately, and placed it over his chest. "I do not regret choosing you," he said, "but I fear I will spend the rest of my life proving it to you." Her breath caught, and in that dim, silent room, something shifted between them, something tender, fragile, and powerful. Not lust, not obligation, but the beginning of trust. Later, alone in her carriage ride home, Chloe replayed every moment. The touch, his warmth, the way his voice softened when he said her name. And as the city lights blurred past the window, she felt a quiet truth rising inside her. She did not need to be the loudest woman in the room. She only needed to be herself. For the first time, that seemed enough. London had begun speaking of them as if their union were destiny, as if a single waltz and a scattering of stolen glances could rewrite the rules of society. But destiny, Chloe would soon learn, is rarely gentle, and healing never comes without tearing something open first. 2 days after the Marwood Sapphire Ball, Chloe found herself climbing the grand steps of Westborough House once again, this time for an afternoon tea that Oliver insisted upon. Insisted, as in a duke rearranging his schedule for a woman London had barely noticed a month ago. Servants bowed, carpets cushioned her steps, and yet Chloe felt an unease crawling beneath her ribs, a whisper of doubt left over from the ballroom's sharp tongues. Inside the drawing room, Oliver stood near the window, sleeves rolled back, reading a stack of letters with a frown that could silence Parliament. He turned as she entered. A smile softened his features. Not large, not dramatic, but real. "Chloe," he said, her name spoken as if it belonged to the air between them. She curtsied lightly. "Your Grace." "Oliver," he corrected again. She smiled. "Oliver." He gestured to the chair beside him. "I am glad you came." "I wasn't going to refuse," she said honestly. He tilted his head. "Many do refuse me. You are intimidating." He blinked. "Am I?" She nodded. "Deeply." A small laugh escaped him. Quiet, warm, the kind of sound that made Chloe feel both lighter and more aware of him. But beneath his smile, something shadowed his expression. "Is something troubling you?" she asked gently. He hesitated. "I received a letter this morning. Several, in fact." Chloe waited. He gestured toward the polished oak desk. "You may read them if you wish." She approached slowly, unsure if this was a test of trust or simply honesty. But before she could reach for the letters, a knock interrupted. "Your Grace," the butler said, "Lady Vivian Ashford is here." The words were a slap. Chloe froze. Oliver stiffened. "She insists she carries urgent family business," the butler added. Chloe's stomach twisted. "Vivian is here?" Oliver met her eyes. "Would you prefer I turn her away?" That single question, soft, respectful, felt like a small miracle. "No," Chloe whispered. "Let her in." Vivian swept into the room like an accusation made of silk. "Chloe," she said with a false smile, "how fortunate to find you here, though I suppose you practically live here now." Oliver's jaw tightened. "Lady Vivian." "Your Grace," she answered sweetly. "I come with father's concerns." Chloe stiffened. "Concerns?" Vivian lowered her voice dramatically, ensuring the servants leaned closer. "It is being said around London that your proposal was born from obligation, that Chloe is being pitied into marriage." The words tasted like poison. Chloe flinched. Oliver's expression hardened. "Those rumors are lies." Vivian shrugged. "Are they?" Chloe forced herself to speak. Why are you doing this, Vivian? Vivian's eyes glittered like razors. Because I refuse to be humiliated by you again. You embarrassed yourself, Chloe whispered. Vivian's voice sharpened. You don't deserve him. Oliver stepped forward, voice low and cutting. Lady Vivian, if you ever speak to your sister with such cruelty again— She's not my sister, Vivian snapped. Silence. Chloe inhaled sharply, pain slicing through her. Vivian smiled. You were father's mistake, not mine. Oliver moved as if to intervene, but Chloe lifted a trembling hand. No, she said softly. Do not defend me. Both of them stared at her. Chloe met Vivian's eyes, steady, wounded, but no longer small. Your hatred is not my inheritance, she whispered. You may keep it. Vivian's face twisted. Before either of them could respond, the butler reappeared. Your Grace, he murmured. The item you requested has been found. Oliver nodded. Bring it. A moment later, a small stack of old papers, neatly tied with ribbon, was placed in Oliver's hands. Chloe frowned. What is that? Oliver hesitated, then offered them to her. Letters, he said quietly. Found in a locked drawer in my late mother's desk. Addressed to someone named Eleanor. The name struck Chloe like a cold draft. Eleanor, she repeated. Your mother? A friend? Oliver's eyes dropped. My first wife. Vivian's eyes widened with delight. She smelled scandal like perfume. Chloe swallowed painfully. You were married before? Yes, Oliver said softly. She died. Years ago. Vivian smirked. So Chloe is the replacement. Enough, Oliver snapped. Chloe felt dizzy. The world tilted, but she remained still. She lifted the ribbon, hands trembling. Oliver spoke before she could open the first letter. I did not know these existed, he said. I swear it, Chloe. I believed all traces of my past marriage had been settled. I do not hide ghosts. Not from you. Her throat tightened painfully. Why show me these? She whispered. Because I will not build a future with you on buried truths, he said. If these letters hold anything relevant, sorrow, guilt, secrets, you have the right to know. I want you to walk into this marriage with clarity, not shadows. Vivian made a mocking sound. How noble. Oliver didn't even turn toward her. His eyes were on Chloe, aching, uncertain, sincere. You may read them, he said, or burn them, or hand them back to me. But I will not begin something honest with you, while you fear what is hidden. Chloe looked down at the letters. Aged edges, faded ink, a name she had never known yet suddenly felt connected to. Eleanor. A life lived before she existed. A sorrow he carried quietly. Vivian watched eagerly, waiting for the downfall. But Chloe's fingers curled gently around the letters, holding them. Not as a weapon, not as a threat, but as something fragile. I do not want to read them yet, she whispered. Not until I understand what you carry in your heart. Oliver exhaled, relief flooding his features. Chloe. She raised her head. I will not compete with a ghost, she said softly, but I will honor the pain that shaped the man I am agreeing to marry. There, in the quiet drawing room, something shifted. Vivian rolled her eyes, furious with Chloe's grace. This is ridiculous, she spat. He's using you. Oliver stood straighter. Lady Vivian, leave. Now. Vivian turned to Chloe, final barb ready. You truly think he chose you for love? Or do you think he chose you because no one else would? Chloe's heart stung, hard. Oliver stepped toward her instantly. She doesn't get to decide your worth, he said. Not today, not ever. Vivian scoffed and finally swept out in a storm of perfume and envy. The door closed. Silence. Chloe stood with the letters in her hands, breath uneven. Oliver approached slowly, as if afraid to push too far. You may ask me anything, he murmured. Anything you fear, anything you doubt. I am here. Chloe looked up. Her voice was fragile but steady. Will I always stand in someone's shadow with you? He stopped. No distance, no armor, just honesty. No, he said softly. You will stand beside me. if you choose to. Her breath trembled out. She closed her eyes and held the letters to her heart, not in fear, but in quiet understanding. For the first time, she saw not the Duke, not the title, not the echo of another woman. She saw Oliver, a man who could be flawed, and learning, and hers, if they built something true. That night, alone in her room, Chloe rested the letters gently in a drawer. She did not open them. Not yet, because for the first time she realized something. The past mattered, but not more than the choices made now. She wanted a marriage built on truth, but also on healing, on courage, on both of them daring to begin again. And that would take time. London, for all its glitter and gossip, had no idea what to make of this new version of Oliver Wycliffe. A duke attending morning charity meetings? A duke writing letters, personal letters, instead of having his secretary do it? A duke visiting the Ashford townhouse daily as if he actually wished to see the woman he intended to marry? Unheard of, suspicious, delicious, and London devoured every rumor. But Chloe was the only one who saw the truth. Oliver wasn't merely courting her. He was learning her, slowly, carefully, as if she were a language no one had ever bothered to teach him. 3 days after Vivian's intrusion and the revelation of the letters, Chloe arrived at Westborough House for what Oliver had described as a conversation that requires privacy and patience. Her pulse fluttered the entire carriage ride. What could a duke possibly need privacy and patience to discuss? The butler led her down a corridor she had not walked before, lined with paintings and dimmer light, almost intimate in its quietness. His Grace is waiting in the music room, the butler announced. The music room, not the drawing room, not the study. Something in her chest tightened. When she stepped inside, she found Oliver at the piano, not playing, merely resting his hands on the keys, as if debating whether or not music was a form of vulnerability he could risk. He stood immediately when he saw her. "Chloe," he said softly. She curtsied. "Oliver." His eyes warmed. He seemed to like the way she said his name. "Thank you for coming," he said. "I asked you here today because I believe honesty must continue between us, even when it is uncomfortable." She swallowed. "Very well." He gestured to a small seating arrangement near the fireplace. 2 chairs angled toward one another, close enough for touch, yet not assuming it. Chloe sat. Oliver remained standing a moment longer, hands clasped behind his back. Then, as if gathering courage, he sat as well. A long silence settled. Then, "I owe you truth," he said quietly. "About Eleanor." Her stomach tightened, but she nodded. "Only what you wish to share." His eyes lifted to hers. "I want to share everything," he said, "because I want no ghosts between us." Chloe exhaled softly. "Then I am listening." He drew a slow breath. "Eleanor was kind," he began, "gentle, proper, and very, very sick." Chloe's breath stilled. "I married her knowing she might not live long," he continued. "It was expected of me. 2 families linked by duty and arrangement. I did not resent her. But I did not love her. Not in the way a husband hopes to love a wife." He paused. Chloe waited, steady. "When she died," he said, voice soft but trembling under its calm, "I carried guilt. For not loving her more. For not knowing how to comfort her. For standing beside her bed and feeling helpless." Chloe's heart ached. Not with jealousy, but with empathy. "I understand," she whispered. Oliver shook his head. "No. You understand more than most, perhaps. But I need you to hear the next part." She straightened. "I spent years believing emotional distance was safer," he said. "I avoided attachments. I avoided hope. I let silence become my shield. It was easier that way." "And now?" Chloe asked. His eyes did not waver. "Now," he murmured, "I find myself wanting what I thought I didn't deserve." Her chest tightened. "What is that?" "You," he said simply. Her breath caught. "I do not know how to be a romantic man," he admitted, "but I wish to learn. With you. For you." A warmth spread through Chloe so fast it felt like a physical ache. "Oliver," she breathed. He leaned forward, elbows resting lightly on his knees. "There is something else," he said. "Something difficult. I do not always know how to touch someone without feeling as if I am intruding." Chloe froze. He wasn't speaking of physical restraint. He was speaking of emotional permission. "I do not want to frighten you," he murmured, "or overwhelm you. When I nearly touched your face in the garden, I stopped myself because I was unsure if you wanted it." She swallowed. "I did," she whispered. He exhaled sharply, a tiny, quiet sign of relief. "Then perhaps," he said slowly, "we should speak about touch." Chloe's pulse thundered. "Touch?" He nodded. "What is allowed? What is welcome? What is not?" Her cheeks warmed, but she held his gaze. Safe, respected, seen. "I have never been touched with kindness," she admitted. His jaw tightened. Pain flickered in his expression. Pain for her. "Then I will be gentle," he said. She gave a small nod. "I would like that." He extended his hand, a quiet offering. "May I?" Chloe inhaled deeply, then placed her hand into his. Heat, strength, a softness she had not expected. He curled his fingers slowly around hers. It was not a grand kiss, not a passionate embrace, but it was intimacy, real intimacy. Her breath trembled. Oliver looked at her, really looked, and said, "I would never hurt you, not with touch, not with words, not with silence." Her eyes stung. "And I will try," she whispered, "to believe that." He brushed his thumb lightly over her knuckles, not rushed, not claiming, just present. "You do not have to try alone," he murmured. "We will learn together." Their moment was interrupted by a sharp knock. Oliver closed his eyes. "I should have locked the door." Chloe stifled a smile. "You have servants, Oliver. They have keys." A footman entered, flustered. "Your Grace, forgive the intrusion, but there has been an incident." Oliver straightened immediately. "Incident?" The footman hesitated. "A rumor is spreading through London. Rapidly." Chloe felt her stomach tighten. "About what?" The footman swallowed. "About you, Miss Ashford." Oliver's entire body went still. "What rumor?" he asked, voice dangerously calm. The footman glanced apologetically at Chloe. "It is being said that Miss Ashford tricked your Grace into proposing by faking humiliation, that she orchestrated the wine spill, that," his voice wavered, "that she and her father conspired to trap you into marriage." Chloe's breath vanished. Oliver stood abruptly, fury tightening his posture. "Who," he said softly, "began this?" Chloe didn't need to hear the name. She already knew. "Vivienne," she whispered. Oliver's eyes burned. "This ends tonight." "No," Chloe said quickly, rising. "If you confront her publicly, she will only twist the story further." "So I should allow her to insult you freely?" he demanded. "No," Chloe said gently. "But let me handle her." Oliver blinked. "You?" She nodded. "She wants to provoke you, not me. She wants attention, drama, a scene to feed London. But if I face her privately, she loses her audience." He stared at Chloe as if seeing a new layer of her, a layer of strength, wisdom, strategy. "You are remarkable," he murmured. She looked away, embarrassed. "I am simply tired of being wounded." He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel his breath. "You do not have to fight alone." She dared to look up at him. "And you," she murmured, "do not have to protect me from everything." His expression softened with something dangerously tender. "Chloe," he said quietly, "I am beginning to realize that you are not fragile." She smiled faintly. "I never was." He exhaled slowly, then lifted her hand, hesitating only a second, and pressed a soft kiss to her knuckles. Her pulse erupted. "Go home," he whispered. "Rest. Tomorrow, we face London together. Not as a scandal, but as us." Her cheeks warmed. "Us?" His thumb brushed her hand again. "Yes," he said softly. "Us." That night, as Chloe rode home, the city felt different. Not smaller, not larger, just manageable. She held on to the feeling. Not certainty, not perfection, but something far more precious. A partnership forming, a future chosen, a love beginning in quiet bravery. And Chloe realized something profound. Sometimes healing begins not with a grand gesture, but with a single, honest touch. London's rumor mill had sharpened its teeth overnight. By morning, the whispers had evolved from malicious curiosity to full-blown fiction. Chloe Ashford faked the whole scene. She staged the spill. The Duke was manipulated. She's a schemer, just like her father. It was the kind of poison that spread fast and deep, hunting for the weakest point. But Chloe Ashford was no longer the weakest point. She was simply the one London had underestimated. The Ashford townhouse felt like a battlefield waiting to erupt. Servants whispered behind doors. Lady Ashford pretended not to hear anything, as usual, and Lord Ashford looked as if he'd aged 10 years overnight. Chloe entered the morning room with quiet resolve. "Where is Vivienne?" she asked. Her father startled. "Chloe, perhaps it's best not to confront your sister." "No," Chloe said gently but firmly. "It's past time." Lord Ashford hesitated, then gestured toward the upstairs parlor. Chloe climbed the steps slowly, her heartbeat steady, her hand surprisingly calm. Strength, she realized, wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was simply the refusal to break. At the top of the stairs, she paused. One breath, two, then opened the parlor door. Vivienne stood near the window, already dressed in a gown of sapphire silk, brushing her hair with agitated strokes. She spun around. "Oh," she said coolly, "the Duchess-to-be graces me with her presence." Chloe closed the door behind her. "Vivienne, we need to talk." "About what?" Vivienne sneered. "Your manipulation? Your lies? Or perhaps how you're fooling the Duke with your pathetic little innocent act?" Chloe took a step forward, then another. "I did not orchestrate the wine spill." "Of course you didn't," Vivienne said with a laugh. "You're not clever enough." Chloe swallowed, not the insult, but the shadow of pain that still tried to cling to her. She spoke softly. "I have never wanted anything you have." That startled Vivienne. A flicker of confusion passed through her eyes. Chloe continued. "You think I envy your beauty, your attention, the way London bows to you. But Vivienne, those things come with a cost I've never desired." Vivienne scoffed. "What would you know about costs?" Chloe held her gaze. "Enough to see the pain you won't admit. Enough to see you're terrified of being replaced. Enough to understand why you attacked me." Vivienne's face hardened. Defensive, wounded, furious. "You know nothing," she hissed. "I know you're angry at Father," Chloe said. "Not at me." Vivienne froze. Chloe's voice softened. "You're angry that Father remarried. Angry that I exist. Angry that your mother's memory faded when mine began. You want someone to blame, and I was the easiest target." Vivienne's trembling gave her away. For the first time, Chloe saw her sister look small. "Stop," Vivienne whispered, voice cracking. "Just stop." Chloe stepped closer, calm, composed, no longer the shadow they tried to make her. "I am not here to hurt you," she said, "but I won't let you hurt me anymore." Vivienne blinked quickly, burying emotion beneath rage. "Even if I hate you?" Vivienne whispered. Chloe inhaled slowly. "Even if you do." A single tear escaped Vivienne's eye before she turned away sharply. "Get out," she croaked. And Chloe did. Not in defeat, but in peace. She had fought without screaming. She had defended herself without cruelty. She had walked into the fire and left unburned. When she reached the bottom of the stairs, her father stood waiting. "Chloe," he breathed, voice breaking. "I heard voices." Chloe met his eyes gently. "Father, she needs help, not an enemy." His shoulders sagged. "You have more grace than any woman I've ever known," he whispered. Chloe's heart ached, not in pain, but in healing. "Thank you," she said softly. Oliver arrived less than an hour later, storming through the front door so quickly that the staff barely had time to announce him. His expression was thunder itself. "Chloe," he said the moment he saw her. "I heard what happened. Every part of me wanted to tear into your sister." Chloe stepped toward him. And every part of me appreciates that. But I handled it. He softened immediately. Are you hurt? No, she said. Not anymore. He exhaled, tension bleeding out. Then his jaw flexed again. But the rumors, I don't care about rumors, she said gently. That makes one of us, he muttered. She smiled faintly. Oliver. He looked at her, and something inside him cracked open. Fear, protectiveness, tenderness all mixing into one quiet storm. Chloe, he said quietly, I need you to know something. I feel... A footman burst in abruptly. Forgive me, Your Grace, but your mother's letters. One of them was misplaced. It was found in Miss Ashford's carriage. Oliver froze. Chloe's stomach plunged. In my carriage? She asked, stunned. The footman nodded. Yes, miss. Slipped between the seat cushions. Oliver's eyes darkened with concern, not suspicion. But concern was enough to make Chloe's breath falter. Let me see it, Oliver said. The footman handed him the letter. Oliver examined it slowly, carefully. This seal, he murmured. This handwriting. This was not stored with the others. It was... hidden. Chloe's heart pounded. Hidden? He nodded. This isn't correspondence from Eleanor, he said. This is addressed to my mother. Chloe's pulse stilled. He turned the envelope over, and there, in faded ink, was a name. Lady Ashford. Chloe's breath broke. My mother? She whispered. Oliver looked up sharply. This, he said, voice low and steady, changes everything. A chill moved down Chloe's spine. I don't understand, she whispered. Oliver's gaze softened with quiet warning, not harsh, not frightening, but protective. I don't want to alarm you, he said. But Chloe, this letter suggests our families were connected long before you and I ever met. Silence. Her world tilted. Connected how? She whispered. He stepped closer, slowly, gently, his presence grounding her. That, he murmured, is what we must discover together. His hand brushed hers, not by accident, not tentatively, but with certainty. She inhaled sharply at the warmth of his touch. Chloe, he whispered, look at me. She did. You are not alone, he said. Not in this scandal, not in this mystery, not in this, whatever we are becoming. She swallowed hard. Oliver. He stepped closer. Their foreheads almost touched. Almost. Her breath mingled with his. Do you want me to let go? He asked softly. No, she whispered. His exhale trembled, ever so slightly. He did not kiss her. Not yet. But he lifted her hand slowly, deliberately, and pressed a kiss to her wrist, slow enough to feel every heartbeat between them. Chloe nearly melted. This, he murmured, lips brushing her skin, is only the beginning. Her eyes fluttered. Her heart soared. And for the first time, the loneliness she had carried for so many years felt distant, fading, replaced by something terrifyingly beautiful, hope, and the kind of love that demands courage. That night, as Chloe lay awake, the letter burned in her mind. A letter addressed to her mother, found in her carriage, linked to Oliver's family. It wasn't merely a clue, it was a thread. And Chloe understood something profound. Their love story wasn't just about healing. It was about uncovering a truth buried long before their hearts even met. The letter sat on the mahogany table like an uninvited truth. Quiet, delicate, dangerous. Chloe stared at it, fingers trembling, as if the paper might burn her with a single touch. Oliver watched her carefully, not with suspicion, but with the fierce, steady protectiveness of a man who had made a silent vow. You do not have to open it alone, he said gently. Chloe swallowed. But the letter was sent to my mother, and found in my carriage. That is precisely why I want to open it with you, he replied. Together. The words struck deep. Together. The concept still felt new in Chloe's world, something tender, fragile, and yet powerful enough to steady her breathing. She nodded. Oliver broke the wax seal with careful fingers. The paper crackled softly, releasing a faint old scent, lavender dust and something bittersweet. He unfolded it slowly, eyes narrowing in concentration. Then he read aloud, "My dearest friend, I fear the secret we carry may one day demand a reckoning neither of us wished for. Your daughter must be protected from those who would use her for their gain. If ever our paths converge again, may it be under gentler skies than those we once knew. Lady Eleanor Wycliffe." The room froze. Chloe's heart stopped. "Eleanor wrote to my mother." Oliver nodded slowly. "It seems they knew each other. But how?" Chloe whispered. He exhaled. "I don't know. Yet." Her pulse raced. The edges of her world blurred. "If Eleanor knew my mother," Chloe murmured, "then why did no one ever say anything? Why did my father never mention it?" Oliver's jaw tightened. Because whatever they shared, they went to great lengths to hide. Silence settled, heavy with implication. Chloe stared at the letter, an object as fragile as it was explosive. A bridge between two families. A warning. A secret buried deep. Her eyes stung. "I don't want this to change how you see me," she whispered. Oliver stepped closer. "It doesn't," he said immediately. "If anything, it makes me more determined to protect you. Not from your past, but from those who would twist it." Chloe looked at him, really looked, and saw truth, not comfort. She took a breath. "There's something else I fear." "And what is that?" he asked softly. "That you'll see me as an extension of this mystery," she whispered. "As part of your past, not your future." Oliver's expression sharpened with emotion, raw, unfiltered. He reached for her hand, slowly, deliberately. "Chloe," he said quietly, "you are the first future I've wanted in years." Her throat tightened. "And Eleanor?" she whispered. He held her gaze. "Eleanor was a chapter. A sad one, but you—" His thumb brushed her knuckles. "You are the beginning of something entirely different." Her breath trembled. "Are you certain?" she whispered. He leaned closer, just inches between them, his voice low and warm. "Certain enough to build a life with you," he murmured, "and determined enough to face whatever truth this letter holds." Chloe's eyes fluttered. Their lips were close, dangerously close. He hesitated. "May I?" he whispered. Her heart screamed yes. Her soul whispered yes. But her fear, her old, familiar fear, rose like a thin wall. "I don't know," she exhaled. Oliver froze, not in frustration, but respect. "Then I won't," he said gently. "Not until you are sure." She felt her heart crack with relief and longing. He stepped back, but only slightly. "Come with me," he said. He led her down a long corridor, their hands brushing now and then, accidental touches that sent currents through her veins. They entered the library, a breathtaking room filled with soaring shelves, sunlight, and the quiet hum of pages carrying entire worlds. "This," Oliver said softly, "is the one place where I never feel alone." Chloe stepped inside, and her breath caught. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Oliver watched her, a small smile forming. "So are you." She turned sharply, cheeks warming. "I mean," he corrected with a faint blush he tried to mask, "your presence. Not, you can stop," she said softly, amused despite everything. He cleared his throat, flustered, and she felt something warm uncurl in her chest. Affection, deep and unexpected. She walked along the shelves, trailing her fingers along the leather spines. "Oliver," she asked gently, "what do you think Eleanor meant by a reckoning?" He joined her at the shelf, standing close but not too close. "I think," he said slowly, "that Eleanor and your mother shared a secret powerful enough to harm both families. And I am somehow involved," Chloe whispered. He did not deny it. "You may be," he said quietly. "But Chloe, listen to me carefully." She turned. Oliver's eyes locked onto hers with a force that stole her breath. "You are not responsible for the secrets of the dead," he said. "You owe them nothing. You owe yourself everything." Her eyes stung again. He reached up, his hand lifted with such tenderness, such slow intention, that she closed her eyes instinctively. But just before he touched her cheek, he paused. "Is this welcome?" he asked quietly. She looked at him, saw the carefulness, the respect, the desire wrapped in restraint, and whispered, "Yes." This time his fingers touched her cheek gently, warm, steady, reverent, and Chloe inhaled sharply. It wasn't a kiss, it wasn't passion. It was something far more terrifying. Intimacy. She leaned into his touch without thinking. Oliver's breath caught. "You undo me," he murmured. Her heart trembled. "I don't mean to." He smiled, a small, aching smile. "That is precisely why you do." Slowly he lowered his hand. "If I kiss you now," he said softly, "it will be because you want it, not because the moment demands it. And I want more than a moment with you." Her chest tightened. She whispered, "I'm scared." He nodded. "So am I." Silence fell, gentle, warm. Then Oliver stepped back, breathing slowly. "Let me show you something," he said. He moved to a tall cabinet near the fireplace. "This was Eleanor's," he said gently. "Not her letters. Not her things." He opened the cabinet. Inside were journals, dozens of them. Chloe froze. Oliver continued softly, "I believe your mother may be mentioned in these. I want you to have access to all of it, with me, not alone." Chloe touched the spines gently. The past, the secrets, the truth, and at the very center, the beginning of healing. She turned to Oliver. "You're giving me everything," she whispered. "No," he said softly. "I'm offering to share it." Her heart thudded painfully. "Oliver," she breathed. "Chloe," he answered. Their eyes held. A heartbeat. 2, 3. But he did not kiss her. And that restraint, that devotion, that patience, made her fall a little more. That night, alone in her room, Chloe opened her journal, her own, not Eleanor's. She wrote, "Today I learned that love is not the fire that consumes, but the warmth that waits. Oliver waits for me, and perhaps I am ready to meet him halfway." She closed the book gently. For the first time, she did not feel afraid of the future. She felt curious. And that, more than anything, was how a woman begins to fall in love. The next morning dawned gray and cool, as if London sensed that something quiet but seismic was shifting in the lives of two people who were trying, very carefully, to choose one another. Chloe arrived at Westborough House with a knot in her stomach and a strange flutter in her chest, a mixture of dread and hope, of past and future, of secrets and something resembling the beginning of love. The butler guided her not to the drawing room or the music room, but to the library, the place Oliver had quietly marked as theirs. When she entered, Oliver was already there, not composed, not perfect, but sitting on the floor, on the actual carpet, surrounded by journals, papers, and open books, sleeves rolled up, hair mussed, looking like a man fighting an invisible battle. Chloe froze. He looked up, and for the first time since she had known him, he looked troubled, deeply troubled. "Oliver?" she whispered. He stood too quickly. "Chloe, I didn't expect you so early. You sent for me, did I?" He blinked, rubbed his forehead. Something was wrong. "Oliver," she said softly, stepping nearer. "Talk to me." He inhaled sharply. "I don't know what I'm supposed to feel," he said. Her heart tightened. "What do you mean?" He shook his head, running a hand through his hair. Agitated, vulnerable. "These journals," he said, gesturing around them. "They speak of Eleanor's illness, yes, but also of something else, something I never fully understood." Chloe lowered herself onto the floor beside him without hesitation. "What did you find?" she asked gently. He lifted a particular journal, its cover worn, corners frayed. Inside, Eleanor's handwriting sprawled. Elegant, fragile. Oliver handed it to Chloe. She read the passage he indicated. "I met with L.A. today. She knows the truth. We agreed Chloe must never be told. Not until it is safe. If the Duke discovers the full extent, everything will fall apart." Chloe's breath stopped. "L.A., she whispered. "Lady Ashford." "My mother," Oliver confirmed. "And Me, Chloe murmured. I was mentioned. He nodded, jaw tight. Chloe, he said quietly, there is something Eleanor and your mother kept hidden, something about you, something they were protecting. Her chest tightened with fear. About me? But I was a child. What could I possibly? Oliver placed a careful hand on her shoulder. Whatever this is, he said gently, you are not at fault. Do you hear me? She nodded, though her breath trembled. Oliver hesitated. His eyes softened in a way that stole the air from her lungs. There is something else, he said. Something I need you to know. She lifted her gaze and saw it. The vulnerability. The weight. The truth he had carried alone for years. Chloe, he whispered. I am afraid. Her breath caught. Of what? Of losing you, he said. Even before I have the right to call you mine. The admission was not dramatic, not poetic. It was raw, human, and she felt her heart open, ache, reach. She touched his hand lightly. You haven't lost me, she whispered. His fingers trembled beneath hers. I don't know how to be loved, he murmured, voice breaking slightly. And I don't know how to give love without breaking something. Chloe's eyes softened. Then we will learn, she whispered. Together. He inhaled shakily, then closed his eyes for a brief moment, just long enough for her to understand that this was a man who had carried grief alone for too long. When he opened them again, something resolute shone there. You choose the bravest words, he said softly. Always. She smiled faintly. No, I choose the true ones. Their hands remained intertwined. A quiet, trembling promise. They spent the next hour reading, slowly, carefully, through pages written years ago by women who had loved them both in their own ways. The deeper they went, the more the mystery sharpened. References to the event, the arrangement, the air that must be watched, and always, Chloe's name. Finally, Chloe leaned back, breath shaking. This is too much, she whispered. My mother, Eleanor, they were hiding something from both of us. Oliver nodded. Yes. What if it changes everything? It won't change how I see you. Her eyes stung with tears she didn't want to shed. You can't know that, she whispered. He reached for her face, slowly, gently, and cupped her cheek with a tenderness that made her heart ache. I do, he said. Chloe, listen to me. Whatever truth we uncover, it will not make me walk away from you. Her breath caught. You speak as if I care, he murmured. Because I do. Her eyes fluttered. He leaned in, closer, his breath warm against her lips, a whisper of a kiss away. And then, the door burst open. Vivian, again. Oh, she said loudly. What a charming little scene. Oliver stiffened. Chloe closed her eyes in frustration. Vivian sauntered into the room, eyes gleaming with poisonous delight. I see the Duke is learning to lower himself, she said sweetly. How romantic. Oliver's voice dropped to something dangerously calm. Lady Vivian, unless you are here to apologize for your lies— Oh, nonsense, she interrupted. I'm here to warn Chloe. Chloe stiffened. Warn me? Vivian smiled. London knows. About the letter. About Eleanor. About the fact that the Duke's first wife knew our mother. Chloe's blood ran cold. How? Oliver asked sharply. Vivian shrugged. People talk. Servants listen. Secrets spill. Oliver took a step forward. Vivian, if you continue, I'm simply telling the truth, she said. That Chloe is stepping into a marriage built on lies, ghosts, illness, and— Enough, Chloe said. Vivian blinked. Chloe rose, slowly, elegantly. You've caused pain, Chloe said quietly. You've tried to ruin me. You've tried to ruin him. And now you're trying to ruin something that hasn't even had the chance to grow. Vivian scoffed. I'm showing you reality. No, Chloe said softly. You're hiding from your own. Vivian's face froze. Chloe stepped nearer, eyes steady, voice calm, strength blooming beneath her skin. I forgive you, Vivian, she whispered. But I will not let your bitterness become my story. Not anymore. Vivian flinched. For the first time, she looked small. Then she fled the room. Silence followed. Heavy, warm, transformative. Oliver exhaled slowly. "You were extraordinary," he said. Chloe sat again, breath trembling. "I don't feel extraordinary." "You were honest," he murmured. "And brave." "That is far rarer." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes bravery is just choosing not to collapse." He gave a soft laugh. "Then we are both brave." Their eyes met. Something shifted again. Something quiet and beautiful. "Oliver," she whispered, "when you leaned in earlier..." He paused. "Yes? What were you going to do?" He stepped closer, slowly, cautiously, and lifted her hand again. "I was going to kiss you," he whispered. Her breath caught. "And now?" she asked, voice trembling. He brushed her knuckles against his lips again. Slow, reverent, aching. "Now," he murmured, "I am going to wait until you're no longer afraid." She swallowed. "I'm not afraid of you." He smiled gently. "No, you're afraid of feeling." Her eyes stung. "And I," he added, "am afraid of ruining what we are building." Her throat tightened. "Oliver." He exhaled, a soft, vulnerable sound. "We will get there," he whispered. "But not rushed, not stolen, not half-formed." She nodded, breath shaky. He intertwined their fingers. "Not a moment too soon," he said, "and not a moment too late." That night, Chloe wrote again in her journal, "We are unraveling secrets, but we are weaving something too. A future not built on perfection, but on truth." She closed the book. Her heart was no longer alone, no longer starving, no longer invisible, and she knew as she drifted into sleep that the next chapter of her life would reveal everything. The truth of her past, the depth of Oliver's love, and the price of choosing courage over fear. The morning that would change their lives began quietly. Too quietly. A pale sun washed over London's rooftops, as if hesitant to shine on a day that carried the weight of secrets buried for years. Chloe arrived at Westborough House with the letter tucked safely inside her cloak. Her heart trembled, not with fear but with anticipation. This was the day she would learn who she truly was, and the day Oliver would decide whether his future still had room for her. The butler led her not to the library, nor the drawing room, but to the conservatory, a glass room filled with winter roses and warm light. Oliver stood there, hands clasped behind his back, coat abandoned, vest slightly undone. He looked like a man who had not slept. When he heard her steps, he turned. "Chloe," he breathed, her name sounding like both relief and torment. She approached him slowly. "You found something," she said softly. He nodded. "We both did." He motioned toward a small table. Two objects lay there, a second letter, and a birth document. Chloe's breath caught. She reached for the letter first, hands trembling, heart pounding. Oliver stepped beside her. "Read it," he murmured, voice steady for her sake. Chloe opened the second letter. It was written by Eleanor. Not to Lady Ashford, to Oliver's mother. Her eyes scanned the page. "We must keep the child's identity safe. If Chloe's father learns the truth, he will use it for advantage. Lady Ashford has sworn to protect her daughter, even if it means enduring the consequences alone." Chloe's vision blurred. Protect her daughter. Consequences. Identity. She lifted the birth document with shaking hands. Her eyes widened. "No," she whispered. Oliver placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Chloe," he said softly, "you are not illegitimate. You are not unwanted. You are not a mistake." Tears blurred her vision. "What am I?" she whispered. He took the document gently and read aloud. "Chloe Margaret Ashford, born of Lady Ashford and the late Lord Ashford." Before his marriage to Vivian's mother was formalized. The room spun. Chloe pressed a hand to her mouth. "I was born before the marriage?" Oliver nodded slowly. "Your mother was already with child when she married him. That is why she hid it. That is why Eleanor helped her." Chloe's heart pounded. "So my father..." Oliver's voice softened. He wasn't trying to reject you. He was trying to hide a scandal that could have destroyed your mother. She blinked through tears. I spent my whole life thinking he was ashamed of me. He wasn't ashamed, Oliver whispered. He was afraid. Her knees weakened. Oliver caught her gently, hands firm around her arms, steadying her. You are legitimate, Chloe, he murmured. Loved, protected, even if imperfectly. Tears fell, slow, silent. But Vivienne, Oliver shook his head, knew nothing, and she must never know. This truth is yours, not hers, not London's. Chloe swallowed hard. I don't know who I am anymore. He cupped her face gently, thumb brushing away a tear with reverence. You are Chloe, he whispered, the woman who stood up to her sister with grace, who walked into my library and faced my ghosts without flinching, who holds truth with both hands even when it hurts. Her breath trembled. His voice softened even more. You are the woman I am falling in love with. She froze. The world stilled. He continued, quiet, honest, raw. I tried not to, he admitted. I told myself it was too soon, too complicated. But Chloe, every day, every moment, I choose you a little more. Her breath caught. Oliver. He stepped closer, only inches between them now. Let me touch you, he whispered. Only if you want it. Her heart surged. Her voice was barely a breath. I want it. He exhaled, a sound full of relief, desire, and tenderness. Then, slowly, carefully, he touched her cheek, her jaw, her lips, soft, gentle, as if memorizing her. Are you still afraid? He murmured. She didn't hesitate. No. His hand slid to the back of her neck, warm, secure. Then he leaned in and kissed her. Slowly, devoutly, as if she were something sacred he had waited a lifetime to touch. Chloe melted into him, hands trembling against his chest, breath blending with his, heart opening like dawn. The kiss deepened slightly, still gentle, still patient, but full of everything they had not said. When they finally broke apart, Chloe rested her forehead against his, breath unsteady. I thought I would break, she whispered. It takes strength to break, he murmured. And even more strength to put yourself back together. She smiled through tears. He kissed her again, just once, soft, warm, before stepping back enough to meet her eyes fully. Chloe, he said softly, whatever comes of this, whatever truth we uncover next, I want you beside me, as my partner, my equal, my duchess. Her heart swelled so deeply it hurt. Then ask me, she whispered. He smiled, small, genuine, full of awe, and dropped to one knee. Not like a duke performing ceremony, but like a man choosing love. Chloe Margaret Ashford, he said, voice trembling with emotion, will you marry me? Not because London demands it, not because fate forced it, but because I love you, and I want to build a life with you. Honestly, gently, courageously. Tears fell freely. Chloe lifted his hand. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Oliver, I will. He stood, lifting her into his arms, kissing her with the warmth of a life finally beginning. They stayed like that, wrapped in sunlight, wrapped in truth, knowing the past did not define them. They defined themselves. Together. This story is not about perfection. It's about courage. The courage to choose love, to heal old wounds, to speak truth, to be vulnerable, and to build a life not on titles or expectations, but on honesty and gentleness. Chloe and Oliver show us that. Love begins when fear ends. Healing begins when truth is spoken. Redemption begins when hearts choose each other, every single day. And above all, love is not the absence of pain. Love is the presence of someone willing to hold it with you. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more stories filled with love, courage, and emotional healing. Your support helps this universe grow, and I can't wait to bring you the next tale.